The only Weezer album I have on vinyl or physically is the Blue album because, of course. So, my theme this month is 22 in blue. Hello world of YouTube and welcome to the last episode of Redacted for 2024, the show where every album has a story. This month I will be not only helping send the theme I've had throughout the year of the sequel into the sunset, which will be capped off on Saturday with one more video about a sequel to something else. But this month I'm going to be sending the second theme that's been going a bit deeper throughout the year of the sequel throughout the show Redacted this year by taking a look at one more stretch of releases from 2020's sequel, 2022, which even in context of spinning the stuff for this show, for this theme, I still had a hell of a great time because even those releases do have some absolute quality stuff woven throughout them. The subject of today's video, though, I hadn't spun in 2022 and didn't really start spinning until it came time to pulling them together in this album listening experience of sorts, even if they are a band who I've talked about at length in the past. This show included more so than any other band that's had a repeat spot on this show. The group in question are the 90s nerdy dad rock band Weezer, and the subject of today's video is a bringing together of their 4 EPs they dropped throughout 2022 that I'm going to try to present in an album-like experience that I'm also just going to call Seasons.
It's my sadness, it's my lone reward. It's dark enough to see the stars. I wonder who and where we are.
Now, I didn't make a video on Weezer's Seasons EPs prior to this, because I am going to talk about my opinions on the EPs before going into my Redacted. There's a reason why this runtime is a little bit on the longer side. But I've talked about Weezer at length on this channel. They're a band that I've had mixed emotions of their collective discography. They still have some records that I think are pretty well cemented as classics in their lane at the very least. The thing is, where they left us throughout their duology from 2021 didn't leave me sure with where their sound was really going to go, considering those two records are intentionally, but still starkly different from each other. What I didn't expect, though, was throughout these EPs to see the band embracing both of those sonic identities in two very different ways. The output being a handful of EPs that I would honestly say get better with each passing season. I really don't like Spring. It's got some songs that I do enjoy, and even some of the songs I don't enjoy wholly ended up on my Redacted because of the purpose of them within the context of the broader themes being painted throughout these 4 EPs. While sonically, yeah, it very much evokes springtime, I just think Weezer's sugary brand of springtime, while pairing well with the sounds on a record like OK Human, and I think evolves on them in some choice moments, I just think lead to some of the worst writing equally so. They were trying to capture that sort of like vibrant side, that cutesy side even, that spring can evoke, and I think Weezer attempting that lyrically was just wrong in a smattering of instances. There are still some choice moments throughout spring that crop up on the Redacted, but I would say easily out of the 4 seasons, it is my least favorite. From a, at least, EP sense, I think if I were to rank the seasons in actuality, it would be maybe second favorite, partially because my birthday falls in spring, so it's a fun time for me at the very least, even if I am dying from my, allergies. I think summer adds a bit more heat in an apropos sort of sense sonically, and a bit more aggression in a way that pivots some of the writing in some, again, dodgy instances, some of which were, again, left on the cutting room floor, but do crop up on the Redacted proper. But also, I think, do a great melding of some of that Van Weezer guitar energy with the operatics and theatrics from OK Human. They do so in some instances on spring, but I think that as far as further melding them on summer, they do so pretty solidly, in my opinion. There's some genuine heights, and there's some moments where, like, emotionally, while they are writing with a bit more attitude in ways that are cringe as fuck, they also in the sense of like leaning into some of the more emotionally driven cores throughout these EPs, do so in a vulnerable sense that feels very Weezer. It feels a bit too adolescent for a band this old, but like it's got some heat still that I think rises up moderately so. I think Summer out of the EPs might be my second least favorite. As far as seasons go, it might be my third least favorite, if not my least favorite. I hate how hot Summer gets. I like the good times that Summer can bring, and that's why it would maybe sit in my third, because Winter doesn't really have a whole lot of good energy. It's just a depressing time all around. But like Summer can just get like bleak and hot, and I really hate when it does that. And I think Autumn is a nice step above that, throwing into some pivots into some like dance-rooted realms, which I think is an interesting choice for fall, but I think also the moments outside of that where they more lean into the rock and gravitas fits the atmosphere that they're trying to sonically create. And I think that as far as like the 4 EPs, it is probably my favorite, if not Winter, because the band does a better job, I think, at capturing the mood of those seasons with their brand of power pop and emotional, you know, gravitas and the like. Autumn obviously is my favorite season. I'm a basic bitch millennial. As far as the Winter EP goes, I think that I honestly think that brings a better balance of presenting the more guitar-driven power pop with some good intimate moments, more so than where the intimacy was trying to go in parts of Autumn and especially Summer. But like, they reach a core here on some of the songs that I think evolves Weezer's sound, while still, in some ways with how the bright, you know, sonics pop off, still reach a sort of adolescent charm that I think is what sold people to Weezer in the first place. I think that just like what weighs all 4 of these EPs down, Winter less or so, is how the writing sort of comes off and reads on the paper. It's just kind of weird. So these are 4 weird-ass EPs at the end of the day. I think that just Winter might be the best, even if its problems more sit with where the diversions go, because the emotional core of this EP is probably the strongest. If you're wanting like a rating of the 4 EPs, I'd give Spring like a 4 out of 10. I'd give Summer like a 5 out of 10. I'd give Fall like a 6 out of 10, and I may give Winter like a 7 or a 6 out of 10, depending on my mood. Now, my overall goal when pulling these 4 EPs together was to really showcase the evolution of the love story that seems to unfold across these 4 EPs. You know, and a lot of it's through the POV of whoever Rivers is writing through, which ultimately is what leads to the highs and lows of the lyrics on here. But the mood is still consistent throughout this Redacted. It just shows how those insecurities morph within the protagonist and how it affects the relationship before ultimately trying to make things right on the other side. While I didn't necessarily intend to lay it out how I did, it does kind of go through the cycle of a couple of years, showcasing those awkward missteps that can happen throughout the growth of one's life. Something that I think honestly morphs the adolescence, that I think can lead to some Weezer cringe in the past. I think also kind of helps some of those weak moments, some of those moments that I kept in at showcasing that evolution. But again, I cut the fuck out of these EPs. My version is 15 songs and about 48 minutes in length. So let's show off the track listing before breaking it down track by track now.
I could say it all to you in Iambic Pentameter. The sound of drums. What's the good of being good when there's no one who kicking back in your lawn chair? You should she stay or should she go? Twinkle in a little listen to my pleas. I know you understand me. Ooh, Francesca, I need you. No matter what. Deep and dreamlessly. Deep and dreamlessly.
There's only a couple instances where I keep the original sequencing from one of the EPs in check, and Out the Gate is a moment that is that. Opening with Opening Night and Angels on Vacation. One that means to set the stage for the listener within the POV's youthful whimsy. The other acting as a Weezer-ass Weezer cut that sees them embracing the classic rock feel of Van Weezer with its twin guitar sound, but still finding ways to throw that OK Human touch to it. That, again, is an interesting cocktail that I didn't think would necessarily work, at least not for Weezer, but they do on a couple of instances on these EPs. It's meant to more sustain the mood while sort of adding to the youthful vibrancy of this part of the record. Not to breeze past Opening Night because it is easily one of my least favorite moments from these EPs. That moment where Rivers is going, "Feels so lovely to laugh," really just reminds me of This House Has People in It in all of the worst ways.
And we're proud of the flag! Salute the flag! Salute the flag!
It also is a moment where I feel like I got dissected from what I was actually listening to and presented with the idea of Rivers writing these youthful sounding songs as an old ass man. And it honestly could give you the same reaction, but I left it here because of, quote unquote, because of thematics in play. From this bright opening, I do transition into one of the best moments of the EPs as a whole, in my opinion. Blue Like Jazz could be seen as a painting of the internal struggle of the protagonist wanting to be cool, but just not quite reaching that bar because of their own insecurities and feeling the weight of them crushing. It is a bombastic ass jam that feels like classic Weezer by the by sonically, but I'm really happy to see them creating a song this solid during an era where they are prolific, which is notoriously a benchmark for Weezer really being down bad. And I wanted to take that sort of insecure feeling that that song dwells in and sort of crank the energy up on it by having the dance banger from Autumn, Can't Dance, Don't Ask Me, a song whose chorus is clumsy as fuck considering the title and how Weezer decided to write this song. But I think as far as like showing the progression of the weight of those insecurities weighing down into an energetic, sort of vibrant song, this is a good sort of pivot I wanted to take place in this, keeping the energy high but awkward. The vibrant synths in the background of it acting as a sort of flip on the more elegant strings and the like being done in the soundscape up to this point, and just to add a little more diversity in the soundscape that Weezer would have been proverbially playing with if they were pulling this into an album-like experience. From there, I wanted to keep the awkwardness there, but sort of having a bit of confidence in it, in the likes of Iambic Pentameter following that. It is a more lower-key, sway-feeling song whose songwriting is wordy as fuck, laced with some of the pretension that could be seen on a record like OK Human, but really plays up the sort of like nerdy edge that Weezer's got going on. It's a cutesy little love song it's meant to be like an intense moment emotionally in the sort of long play going on, while being just a fun sort of mood shift away from the awkward highs that we were sort of dancing through over the last couple of songs. From there, I wanted to sort of keep the mellowness in place sonically, while also adding to that confidence in a song to sort of bring in a new season, as it were, with the sound of drums. It's a song that sort of locks the groove in a bit more stiffly, but sort of adds a more full sound to this sort of building energy. It's a sort of mood sustainer that honestly follows a song from Winter well in some of the lyrics. It's got a fun little lyrical non-moment, and it's meant to be like a pivot into a new year, a new era of sorts for the listener in this, again, long play being unfolded before your ears. It's also, within the context of Spring, the EP, one of the better moments on it, in my opinion, as far as creating just a catchy, bright song that doesn't necessarily go deep or too hard on the paint, but is catchy and effectively fun in its soundscape. A wind down that I think welcomes in the sound of the drums on What's the Good of Being Good after that, and a nice moment that I wanted to have from a sequencing perspective. There's some moments like that in the track listing that feel like they would just blend well together, but I use that moment sonically, transition-wise, to also lean into the pivot in mood that sort of happens throughout the protagonist. It is a moment where he's sort of reflecting on his insecurities, and while maybe not dwelling on them at the start of the new year, finding ways to combat them should they decide to resurface. And they kind of do throughout some of the songwriting, the next couple of songs. It's some of the moments that I just don't think sound that great from a writing perspective, and it feels like Rivers is really going hard on leaning into the POV aspect, on especially Lawn Chair following this. But What's the Good of Being Good is again, not necessarily terrible song, especially in some of the context of some of the lows throughout these EPs, but it's more of a middle-of-the-road jam. And again, sort of just lyrically is meant to act as a mood shifter, because from there goes into Lawn Chair, a song that leans more into the sonic theatrics, while having this just really weird, cringy-esque writing throughout the verses that could, again, feel like it's written from the POV of the protagonist whose mood we've sort of been following, especially when it comes to, like, acting a front to impress somebody. That's how some of the lyrics on this read, and there's another moment later on in this stretch of the record that sort of play up those, again, just very adolescent theatrics, but again, because Rivers is writing in them, they just don't necessarily sound all that great, in my opinion. But in the aftermath of this sort of adolescent mood shift, and you can see it sort of creating a divide in some of the lyrics on records like especially Autumn following Summer, and some of the stuff in Summer as well. But the mood of Should She Stay or Should She Go is meant to be the sort of aftermath of an event like Lawn Chair, in the, sort of rearranging of the ideas here is a bit more of an energy slowdown, but keeps the sort of like groove locked in place. Again, it's a solid moment from the Autumn EP that I think is pretty choice. They've done far worse on a cringe scale, and I think that as far as, again, writing just a contemplative, catchy-ass jam, this is a solid one, and I kept it here for those obvious reasons, before going into the second meltdown that happens on Tastes Like Pain, a moment that interpolates a classical banger for Rivers to have an adolescent meltdown over. Again, not a great moment on paper in the grand hierarchy of Weezer songs, but I kept it here for purpose, because while it could be so easy to just cut all of the songs that you may not like, these records all have a purpose to them, and I think the inclusion of things like this in smaller doses inherently still improves a project without stripping away its identity. You sometimes need songs like Taste Like Pain to really ground the listener in the artistic expression. I don't really love this song. I think out of the Meltdown bangers, it is my favorite because of the classical interpolation. I think it creates this edgy-ass, very much, like, big moment that I think that, like, any angsty teen could easily get invested in. And I let that meltdown wind down into the positive sounding but bleak lyrically Dark Enough to See the Stars after that. It is a song about a cold winter loneliness that it could, especially considering the meltdown, be seen as very on brand for the character that's being written from on these EPs. And it's meant to be a sort of an awakening moment. There's a part throughout the bridge where the lyrics shift into, like, not wanting to feel this way, and maybe needing to change something within. And it's a nice sentiment on a solid jam that has some nice backing to it to add to the winter feel. The jingle bells and the harmonica and stuff, I think, create this nice sonic backdrop for Weezer. And I think that, like, honestly, I could see them do more stuff like this if they're also going to be jumping on the tangents from like the string integrations from OK Human. There's a solid soundscape to this that I think helps add to the juxtaposition of bright, positive sounds, really sad lyrics that this record's definitely trying to champion, and I think does so pretty solidly. But I wanted to take that desire to change and use that to fuel the next handful of songs, starting with Wild at Heart, a song meant to embody looking back on how someone makes you feel before thriving to get them back. Definitely a theme throughout the next couple of songs, and I use this to just catalyst that off. Wild at Heart is another one of the better jams from the spring EP as well, and I wanted to have it here without a doubt. There were a couple of songs that I kind of added for thematic purposes. This is very much not that, but I think that it's also like a shame that it's attached to such a bad EP. From there, I keep the energy of that song, but intensify it more with The Opposite of Me, a song meant to talk about the past and how you are aiming to be the opposite of you. You know, it talks about this sort of meltdown and the repercussions of it, and, you know, considering Lawn Chair was from Summer, it kind of fits the thematics of that. But this song talks about rising from those battles and the past of, you know, being somebody that you may not be the best version of you and being the opposite of that in hopes to be a better version of you. It's a lean jam that, again, I think is one of the better songs from these EPs. Again, the Summer EP is kind of some of the best and worst, and this is another one of those bangers that I think is pretty damn solid. But I use the sort of dramatics and the sort of like growing intensity in the lyrics of that to pivot into brand and emotion, but more pulled back in energy, Francesca, a song that sort of sounds like the pleadings for somebody to get somebody back. And this is that moment where all of those pleadings or that sort of build-up from the last couple of songs reaches an apex. These last couple of songs could be seen as the love letter to Francesca in hopes to get her back. This one, more so than the other two, feels more written from the POV of the protagonist. I think that it's a great sort of cap-off to the last three songs and help be this dramatic climax in the album before it winds down or has sort of like a roll credits moment with The Deep and Dreamless Sleep, a song that sort of has the sonic, it's the last song in the Winter EP, and it has the sort of sonics of a grand resolution or a grand finality, and that's meant to sort of roll this emotional journey to its conclusion. It's got another great use of the string styles from OK Human, and I think blends them more with, not necessarily a classic rock influence a la like some of the Queen worship that happens on here, but more the power pop stylings of Weezer into a decent harmony. It's got some flashy ideas, it's got some nice just sounds to send this era and this record off on, even if the sort of themes rounded up on a song prior. But that's how I would pull together these season's EPs. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts on this Redacted in the comments down below. If you do want to listen to it, linked in the description are a YouTube and a Spotify link for these EPs. What are some fun albums maybe you have seen me never do on this show that you'd like to see me do? Let me know that as well. Hope you had a nice 2024. Hopefully you still enjoyed this show. It's not going anywhere. I've still got ideas on ideas that I can't wait to show you. While I'll also talk about it on Monday's Resident Evil, for those who don't watch the gameplay stuff, this will be the last camera video of the year, but the Resident Evil will be the last video for this year until January 11th, 12th maybe, where I'll be doing the listening log for December before going through list week 2024. I'm going to take a little break to just kind of chill, decompress. You know, we had the wedding and then the holidays. It's been a crazy time, and I'd like to sort of like just kind of come down a little bit before ramping up into a new year. But thank you for joining me on this one. Hopefully you're excited for the Cash Boys video on Saturday and the Resident Evil video on Monday. I'm going to go, though. I've been Varek. You guys have a good day's life situations, and I'll see you another day.